Adidas versus Puma, Nike versus Under Armour. Not many markets are as competitive as the sportswear industry. Having the best shoe design, greatest athletes and most efficient supply chain, there is a reason that the race for the market leader has been many times referred to as sneaker wars. But the point is, the battle is long decided. There is no question who the number one is. Nike's value is more than twice the market cap of Adidas, Puma and Under Armour combined. And not just since yesterday. The company from Oregon has been dominating its competitors since the 90s. How did Nike manage to displace the German sportswear giants Adidas and Puma? What strategy kept them on top for decades? And what have they planned for the future? We take a deeper look into the strategy of the strongest sports brand in the world. For a long time, the sportswear market was dominated by German brands. Adidas and Puma were the big names, had all the resources and know-how, and it didn't look like this would change very soon. But Phil Knight had a different idea. After graduating from the University of Oregon, he enrolled at Stanford for an MBA. Being a competitive runner himself, he followed his interests and wrote a paper with the title "Can Japanese sports shoes do to German sports shoes what Japanese cameras did to German cameras?" His ambition was to import high-quality and low-cost running shoes from Japan, where labor was cheaper, into the American market. And that's exactly what he did. After his graduation, he traveled to Japan and met with Onitsuka Tiger, the company that would later launch Essex. Impressed by the quality and low cost of their running shoes, Knight managed to secure the distribution rights for the Western United States and ordered his first samples. When Knight finally received the first shoes after more than a year of waiting, he mailed 2 pairs to his former track coach Bill Bowerman at the University of Oregon, hoping to gain both a sale and an influential endorsement. To Knight's surprise, Bowerman not only ordered the shoes, but also offered to become a partner and provide product design ideas. The 2 men agreed to a partnership by handshake, and Blue Ribbon Sports was born, the company that would later become Nike. The founding story already reveals some important factors that explain the rise of Nike. First, Phil Knight showed strong analytical skills by realizing the potential in outsourcing the production to Japan. Maybe even more significant were Nike's roots in sports, to be precise in running. Like the 2 co-founders, many of the first employees were former runners. They sold their first running shoes to befriended athletes, often right on the track. One of them was Steve Prefontaine, who was a huge star in Oregon at the time and went on to become Nike's first sponsored track athlete. Soon people realized that the fastest runners were suddenly not wearing Adidas shoes anymore, but this new local brand. Knight and his team quickly realized they had found their perfect marketing strategy. While Adidas was close to officials and putting their money on organizations like FIFA and the IOC, Nike was close to athletes and rather invested in individuals than institutions. The idea of creating a shoe brand from athletes for athletes was also shown in their hands-on research and development. Aside from an intensely competitive mindset, Bowerman displayed a fascination with optimizing the shoes of his athletes. In the early 1970s, Oregon's Hayward Field, where Bowerman worked for years, was transitioning from a crushed cinder track to an artificial surface. And Bowerman was searching for a running shoe that would be suitable for multiple surfaces. While watching his wife making waffles in their kitchen, he had his eureka moment. He simply molded some plastic and poured it into his wife's waffle iron. That completely ruined the iron, but its grooves turned out to be a near-perfect mold for a running shoe. Bowerman's waffle trainer set a precedent for Nike's culture to innovate and to redefine the status quo in sports equipment. It was the first of many major innovations that helped Nike gain and expand the lead on its competitors. Inventions and designs like air soles, the Air Force One, Nike Free and Flyknit followed and revolutionized the sneaker industry. The latest example is the Nike Vaporfly running shoe that made headlines because it is literally making you run faster. It was initially developed to help Eliud Kipchoge break the 2-hour barrier for the marathon, which he did in 2019 in Vienna. That event, and the fact that Nike runners have dominated the major races in recent years, led the World Athletics Association to release new rules to regulate running shoes. Banning shoes because they increase performance, that's a similar story to the NBA banning Michael Jordan's Air Force One. Nike couldn't have wished for better marketing. Eliud Kipchoge and Michael Jordan are just two names from a long list of Nike athletes. What started with Prefontaine quickly developed into the most valuable sport portfolio in the world. Other big names of that list: Carl Lewis, Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, Ronaldinho, Roger Federer, LeBron James and Cristiano Ronaldo, and the other Ronaldo. Their roster of athletes, clubs and federations is the heart of the Nike brand, which is one of the strongest in the world among all industries. Their marketing strategy has been praised many times, from their iconic swoosh logo and Just Do It slogan to multiple advertisements that have won Emmys. But what's just as interesting as the marketing strategy itself is how the organization behind that machinery works. Nike is a so-called matrix organization. That means that employees report to more than one supervisor. For example, if you are a sales manager for footwear, you might report to the sales director and the director of footwear. The departments in a matrix organization can work closely together and communicate more frequently to resolve issues. This frequent information exchange allows managers to respond quickly to the needs of the customers and Nike's business goals. Nike's matrix was previously structured to develop, market, and sell based on product type. This allowed them to be efficient in supply chain and manufacturing, but it did not address the needs of the consumer. So in 2008, Nike made a change to organize based on sports instead of products, an approach they called category offense. Nike's categories include, among others, running, global football, basketball, and training. This change has proven very successful as sales have grown by 70% to over $30 billion since the realignment. Maybe you have even seen the effect of the category offense yourself in a store near you. As a market leader, Nike had so much influence on their retail partners that stores changed their layouts to build entire sections of the store around each of Nike's sports categories. These sections featured footwear, apparel, and equipment tailored to each specific sport, making the shopping experience more convenient for the consumer. The change led to increases in overall spending for multi-sport consumers who now had a large selection of merchandise for each of their sports. So instead of owning one pair of shoes to use for both running and the gym, people now buy one pair of running shoes and one pair of training shoes. The category offense model has even improved Nike's financial reporting and planning. Now, Nike tracks financial performance by sports category and is able to make targeted investments in the struggling categories. For example, if they see a decline in sales of football boots, they could decide to sign a football club to stimulate sales. It is a perfect example how Nike used their influence as a market leader to change the sports industry, from a focus on product silos to sports category. It explains how the company defended and expanded the lead over Adidas and Puma in recent years. But what are Nike's plans for the future? Their strategic outlook might be even more interesting than their past accomplishments. After the category offense in 2008, Nike's leadership decided that it is time for another strategy change in 2017. They announced the Consumer Direct Offense with the goal to better serve the consumer personally, at scale. That sounds very fancy, but basically means that they want to sell more online, via their own website, instead of selling to retailers like Foot Locker. By eliminating the middleman and selling directly to the consumer, Nike can charge the retail instead of the wholesale price. That means they earn more money for every shoe they sell. In the end, most of the strategic decisions are about the margin, although sometimes it's not obvious at first sight. To better understand that, let's look at another important pillar of Nike's newest strategy: a strong focus on women.
So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
Now people could argue that this is just some shiny commercial for social greenwashing. But Nike is actually very serious about that shift of focus towards women's sports. That becomes clear when looking at their matrix again. Nike's new CEO recently announced a shift to a new, simpler consumer construct of men's, women's and kids. Besides some changes to senior leadership, that means that the focus of Nike will be more tailored on the individual needs of the consumers in each of these categories. Supporting equality and women's rights is a good cause and helps Nike sharpen its brand. But it's not just marketing. The women's sportswear market is expected to grow rapidly and has better margins. So just like Nike's push on selling online directly to the consumer, their focus on women is essentially a focus on better margins. Since we are talking about the future, here are two futuristic innovations the Nike Matrix produced recently. Ever wondered why NBA players are still sitting on foldable chairs? The microclimate chair is aiming to change that. It allows players to get quick heating or cooling therapy by simply sitting in the chair rather than hopping into an ice bath. It is also collecting data on the athlete's recovery status, so the player can be brought back on the court at exactly the right time. One step further on making the life of athletes more comfortable is this customized Boeing 787. To extract the best performance out of players, the quality of travel is important. So they segregated the plane into recovery areas, workout decks, sleep and review zones for analyzing past game data. It is very unlikely that Nike will start selling airplanes in the future, but it shows their strive to keep innovating. And it might be a hint that they are willing to expand their product portfolio going forward in order to achieve their own ambitious targets for growth. The bottom line is, Nike keeps betting on the strengths that made them big: world-class athletes, adaptive operations, and constant innovation. If you would like to get more insights into the sports industry, you can join and support us on Patreon, where we provide you with exclusive behind-the-scenes content.